Ever wonder if you're actually making progress with your money or if you're just spinning your wheels? Well, I have some great tools that are going to help you track your financial life to keep moving forward. You're going to walk away from today's episode with 10 different ways to track your finances to help you get and stay on track. These are going to be some great, what I like to call financial thermometers, to help you get an overview of your financial life. You'll also hear them called financial ratios. These are some wonderful stats to give you an idea of how your whole entire money situation is going. These little nuggets of information that you're going to get today are going to help your mind naturally and automatically start working in your favor to help you do the right things. And by the end of this episode, you'll know exactly where you stand financially and whether you're actually making progress. I'm your host and financial planner, Skylar Fleming. I learned all about these financial ratios in my CFP education, and I track these ratios myself monthly to see how my finances are doing, and I'm excited to help break them down for each of you today. So let's get into the episode and start learning all about your financial report card and financial thermometers. Do you want to know a great way to set yourself up for success with saving for retirement? Well, I'm going to share one great tip at the end of today's episode that I have never heard someone go back on after they implement it. So to open up today, you know how there's so many different pieces of financial advice out there? It can be really hard to grab onto one and go with it because you might hear a slightly different piece of advice out there that contradicts what you're learning, and it can be hard to really move forward with one specific piece of advice because there's so much going on out there and it's overwhelming. But these ratios that we're going to talk about today, they're a great guidepost for your personal finances. They're going to give you a dashboard of data to track, a real great way to look over your entire financial situation and say, yeah, I am moving in the right direction. You're going to be able to check in and see how you're doing when you're tracking these numbers that we're going to talk about today. And then you can apply the specific financial goals, the different specific pieces of financial advice in the different areas that you need help with. By using the tools that we're going to talk about today, you're going to be able to understand specifically which areas you need to work on within your financial situation. So let's get into the different ratios and understand how they can help your finances. There are 7 different financial ratios that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about a few of them now, and then I'm going to teach you about a few more in today's case study. The ones you can look forward to learning about in today's case study are net worth, the debt to asset ratio, liquidity, credit utilization, and monthly cash flow. But we're going to start out here today talking about the savings ratio, the emergency fund ratio, the debt to income ratio, and then I'm going to share one milestone that Fidelity talks about that I think they're setting up incorrectly, so I'm excited to share that with you. But let's start today with the savings ratio. This is your monthly savings divided by your monthly income. This one is pretty simple. You divide your monthly savings by your monthly income, and it tells you your savings rate. A good range for this number is 10% to 20%. If you can find yourself in there, you're doing pretty great. And here's a little caveat. Feel free to include your employer match in this. If you're making sure to get your employer match, you can include it in your savings rate because it is technically part of your income. And sure, it's automatically being saved, but it's still being saved. And don't be afraid to push yourself on this one when it comes to increasing your savings rate. And I'm going to share with you at the end of today's episode one simple strategy that's going to help you really increase your savings rate. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. But next, I want to talk about the emergency fund ratio. This one is pretty self-explanatory. I want you to take your total liquid savings, so how much is in like your checking account or your high yield savings account, and divide that by your monthly expenses. This is going to tell you how much money you have to cover an emergency. And specifically, it's going to tell you how much you have to cover your monthly expenses. You may also hear this called a liquidity ratio in some instances, but really it's just telling you how much savings do you have. And this emergency fund ratio, it should come to be about 3 to 6. And that's because that's how many months your liquid savings is able to cover. And if you're in that 3 to 6 month range, you're doing pretty good. And the emergency fund ratio for you is in a good place. The next ratio that can be helpful to track is your debt to income ratio. This is your annual debt payments divided by your annual income. And this is another one that there isn't a super specific guideline on where it is great to be, but this is one where you want to make sure you're comfortable with it and make sure it's going down over time. The higher the number is, the more of your income is going directly to debt. And guess what? Debt strips opportunity from our lives. It's a scary place to be if that debt to income ratio is going up and up and up, because it removes control from your life. So you should see your annual debt to income ratio continually going down. And honestly, it should be fairly low, because the higher this is, the less opportunity you're going to have to do what you want to do with your money. That does it for our first 4 ratios today. I do want to address here a quick issue that I saw when I was doing some research for this episode, and that's around a financial independence number. Now, you may know that that is 25 times your annual expenses, and the reason that that is so key to phrase like that is because it's based on your annual expenses, because that's how much your life costs, right? Well, a common mistake you may see out there is judging your retirement savings based on your current salary. There was an article that I ran over as I was doing some research on this episode that Fidelity said you need to have 1 times your salary by age 30, 3 times your salary by age 40, 6 times by age 50, 8 times by age 60, and 10 times by age 67. The issue that I have with this is that your money that you need is not based on how much you're making right now. If you were to retire, your salary is suddenly 0. And what's 10 times 0? 0. No, your retirement goals need to be based on how much your life is going to cost. And even Fidelity's own article, they go on to talk about how your expenses are a factor in your retirement savings. And that's what you should be focused on. Focus on how much money you need to live your lifestyle with all of these different ratios. I mentioned 25 times your annual expenses. You may hear that called your financial independence number. You might hear it called a financial independence ratio or retirement ratio. I'm not going to dive all the way into the rabbit hole of why it's 25 times, but just know that generally allows you to withdraw at a, say, 4% rate from your retirement portfolio. But I wanted to bring up this article as just a common mistake that when you're considering a financial independence ratio or a retirement ratio, consider it based on expenses, not based on your income before retirement. And that's why it's so important to consider all these ratios and to track our expenses so that we can have an accurate number to base all of these different ratios on so that we know how we're doing financially. I hope those first couple ratios that we talked about today, like the savings ratio, the emergency fund ratio, and the debt to income ratio, were super helpful. And if you want to start tracking one of those, please go do it right now. I do have a few more ratios that I'm excited to teach you about today, and we're going to teach those through the lens of Sofia's case study that's coming up next. So let's dive into that case study. So let's kick off this case study today with some background about Sofia. So let me lay the land here about how Sofia kind of found herself in a financial situation where she didn't have a clear roadmap and how financial ratios were able to be that roadmap for her. So Sofia graduated from the University of Washington in May of 2021 with a degree in mechanical engineering. She landed a job making about $72,000 a year. Thankfully, Sofia graduated without any student loans thanks to some scholarships, working throughout college, and some help from her parents. And while she did feel fortunate to be in this situation, she also felt a little bit confused. Like so many of us, she was told only to spend less than you make and was not given any guidance beyond that about what a good financial situation actually looks like. She wants to build her credit, save for the future, like a home, or save for kids. And she wanted to avoid the financial stress that she had seen so many other people experience, but she didn't have a roadmap or any sort of guidance on how to do this. Well, thankfully, Sofia was listening to a podcast like this one where she heard the mention of financial ratios and how that can be useful over time to track her financial situation. That idea clicked for her, and Sofia, like so many of us, was now able to visualize a personal financial report card. This report card was able to help her see that she was actually making progress instead of just treading water and not quite sure what she was actually doing with her money. So to start off, before we dive into how Sofia used the financial ratios, I want to teach you about a couple more that are going to be super helpful when it comes to getting started with your own personal financial report card. And the main thing you need to know to track is your net worth. And your net worth is your total assets minus your total liabilities. Most everyone knows this one. It's pretty commonly talked about, but if you don't, it's okay. And if you've never tracked it, that's okay. This is a great number to track to get your mind moving in the right direction. And when I say get your mind moving in the right direction, you're going to start naturally seeing opportunities to increase your net worth. Whether it's a smarter debt paydown strategy that's going to allow you to get out of debt faster, or if you're suddenly becoming more aware to money coming into your life and how to use it appropriately, tracking your net worth is going to allow you to really gain a great overview on your personal finances. Net worth is my favorite one to track by far. It's so fun to see over the years and years of tracking this number, watching that chart go up over time and occasionally dipping for a period of time, but it's fun to see it climb and change and understand what is going into that number. And this number provides you a great long-term look back at your financial situation. The next one I'm going to teach about is the debt to assets ratio. This is your total liabilities divided by your total assets. And I want to give you some ranges to think about this number. You're in a safe range if your debt to assets is below 50%. It's generally considered healthy. It means your net worth is at least twice your total debt. A moderate range is about 50% to 100%. It's still manageable, but you need to make sure you're evaluating the types of debt that you have, the purpose of the debt, and whether it's contributing to your overall financial well-being. And now if your debt to assets ratio is over 100%, this means that your total debt is surpassing your net worth. It means there's a very high level of financial risk, and you need to make sure to proceed carefully and figure out a solid debt repayment strategy. If this is the first time you've ever even looked at a number like this with your debt to assets, don't worry too much about the specific range that you fall in. Unless you're over that 100%, then you should focus on getting that under control and making sure you have a solid debt repayment strategy. But this is a number that's great to track over time and to make sure you're moving in a direction that you want to be heading with your debt. Because I doubt that you want to make your debt levels higher, right? Who wants to do that? But it's likely you're going to want to decrease your debt to asset ratio, and tracking it is just going to give you the insight into which direction you're actually heading. And if you're within that 50% to 100% range of debt to assets, don't fret too much, but it may be something to be aware of if that number's climbing, just to realize you need to get that under control. So start tracking your debt to asset ratio so you can see what's going on with your finances. And you're going to see in today's case study that Sofia was able to see that number jump, but then she was able to get it back under control. I got two more ratios that are going to be relevant to today's case study. One we already talked about with the emergency fund ratio. That's just your total liquid savings divided by your monthly expenses. So we'll move on to the last one, which is a monthly cash flow ratio. This is your monthly expenses divided by your monthly income. This helps you understand what percentage your income is being spent every single month. This is a great way to view your money going in and out. And your cash flow can be extremely helpful to track because it's just going to allow you to get a visual picture on where your money's going. It's going to help you understand how much money you're spending every single month. This is a great number to track against the previous month, because if your cash flow is 80% one month and then 90% the next month, that's something that you need to look into. If you're tracking this over every single month, you're going to be able to better maintain an average. You're going to be able to notice spikes in your cash flow and in your cash flow ratio to be able to address spending issues that might be arising. And it's a great one to watch because suddenly you may have $2,000 extra every single month and then suddenly it jumps down to $500 extra. You're going to wonder where that money went. And we're going to see that today with Sofia's case study because she was able to regularly track all of these different ratios over time. And it really helped catch herself before she got into some really big lifestyle creep issues. So let's get into what Sofia did over a couple of years. Well, thankfully, Sofia got started with regularly tracking these as she was figuring out her financial situation. But if you're a couple years into it and you want to start getting a grasp on it, consider now your starting point and go forward with tracking these financial ratios. But to lay the situation a little bit more for you, in June of 2021, that's when Sofia decided to start tracking these ratios on just a simple spreadsheet. Her net worth was about negative $3,200 from a car she had bought and then some gifts she had gotten, so she had some cash in her account, but overall she was in debt. Thankfully, this number wasn't much higher because she didn't have any student loans from college, and her debt to assets ratio was 62% because of the auto loan she had, but her credit utilization was 0% because she hadn't used a credit card at all. And credit utilization is just how much credit you're using divided by your total credit card availability. And credit utilization is something you want to keep under about 30% because that's when it can start impacting your credit score. And we're going to see a situation where Sofia got herself into a lot of credit card debt here shortly. But thankfully, Sofia was still living with her parents, and so her monthly cash flow was really good. Her liquidity ratio, though, was pretty low because she didn't have a lot of money in her savings. So she started off debt-free, which of course isn't everyone's situation. But these ratios will still work for your tracking and to get you on track, whether you're starting at negative $3,200 or negative $80,000. The principles are the same in tracking these numbers, and as long as you're seeing a move in the right direction, you're doing a great job. Which brings us to August of 2021, where things took a little bit of a turn for the worst. Sofia moved to her first apartment, which caused her to take on some debt. She was surprised by the sudden moving expenses, right? Aren't we all? The first time we move, there's a security deposit, first month's rent, buying furniture. This caused her net worth to go down even more. And now her debt to asset ratio went up to 71%. And her credit utilization went up to 100%. She had now maxed out her credit card because she didn't see all these expenses coming. And now that's okay. It's okay if you're surprised by an expense the first time it happens. The key thing is that we learn from these things, and the next time we do it, it's a whole lot easier because we don't make the same mistake. So make it once. Understand what happened. Understand how your ratios changed, right? Her debt to asset ratio went from 62% to 71%, and her credit card utilization went from 0 to 100%. That's a bit of a problem and a little bit of a red flag. But thankfully, Sofia was in a situation where her monthly cash flow was still positive because of her job. But now she realized that her credit utilization went way up, her debt to asset ratio was climbing. She realized that she needed to figure out a debt payoff plan. And thankfully, in October 2024, thanks to tracking these ratios, Sofia was able to get her systems back in order and she was able to get out of debt and start saving money. She budgeted, she tracked her expenses, she got out of credit card debt, she started saving for retirement. All of those things are just techniques or tactics that as you begin to notice these ratios maybe heading in the wrong direction, that's when you start implementing these tactics. They were a great way that she was able to get control and drive an impact on her ratios. And they're going to be a great way for you to also adjust your ratios and adjust your financial thermometer, your financial report card, whatever you want to call it, right? And then you can start using these tools to get it back on track. So now Sofia's net worth is over $100,000 after a few years because of saving into her retirement account with an employer match. And now she also has some cash savings that's helped her liquidity ratio get up to 5.6 months, which means she has a secure and safe emergency fund as well. Hooray, how exciting for Sofia. Her credit utilization is also now down to 8% because she pays off her credit cards every single month before the interest charges, and then she doesn't have to use the credit cards that much because she has a good cash flow system in place. And now her cash flow system is allowing her to save an extra $2,400 a month to whatever opportunity she wants to take because she already has her retirement savings set up automatically. She has a good emergency fund in place, so she's able to use this $2,400 towards whatever, whether it's saving for a home, saving for a new vehicle, saving for a vacation, right? That's what's so exciting about tracking these ratios and using these tools to get your ratios heading in the right direction. So that story talked all about how Sofia was able to use the ratios to get her money moving in the right direction. But what's the purpose of all of these ratios? Well, just know that it is okay to see the numbers go down. Life does happen, and you can't just force the numbers to stay up all the time. It's okay to see them go in the wrong direction for a moment, but that's where it's important to keep watch on your numbers and know that it's just for a moment and not forever. You, of course, don't want to see your debt to asset ratio climb sky high and never come back down. So as you're watching these numbers, the purpose is to just keep an eye on them and then begin implementing the tools to either get out of debt, increase your net worth, invest more money, increase your income. The whole purpose is to give you a dashboard and a perspective on your financial life so that you know what tools to implement when, so that you can keep things moving in the right direction. It's all about consistency and paying attention to the numbers. Once you understand that life happens and the numbers might go in the wrong direction, that's when you're going to realize you need to control what you can control. Control how much you're saving. Control how much you're spending every month. Control where you're living to avoid high cost of living. Control how much you're wasting on things like food, like the episode we had about avoiding food waste. You can control places to optimize your spending. There is so much within your control. And when you begin to control what you can control, you're going to see the numbers move in the correct direction. And if you focus on things outside of your control or your jurisdiction, the numbers are going to spiral. They're going to get out of control. So make sure you know what to focus on and make sure you know how to control all of these numbers. I hope you enjoyed today's case study with Sofia. I want to give you one more quick win here of 5 financial milestones to hit by age 30. This article will be linked in the show notes, but the 5 things are to build an emergency fund, pay off high interest debt, start saving for retirement, save for large expenses, and improve your credit score. These are great overall targets if you're not sure where to go. And I wanted to give you this quick win here so that you can find one of these and start working towards them. And then as you get your numbers and your ratios in order, then you can begin to craft your life and learn how you want to use your money. One of my favorite things as a financial planner is to help people understand what money means to them and to begin to find that specific target that you can use money as a tool to hit. So schedule a free call with me using the link at the bottom of the show notes, and I would love to begin this discussion with you. I also got 5 quick strategies here that I want to share before we wrap up today's episode. Consider using automation, track your spending, pay down your debt, increase your income, and invest for the long term. These are all useful strategies for all sorts of different goals. Automation is going to be a huge strategy for the simple tip that I'm going to share here very soon about how you can supercharge your retirement savings and make it easy without ever having to go back to the way it was before. But that does it for today's case study and for today's episode. I want to wrap all of this up next with the big action item, and that great tip to get yourself to save for retirement. So today's main action item is for you to start tracking one financial ratio right now. Choose one from the show notes. I'll list them all out. Write it down in a note or a spreadsheet and start tracking it regularly. But in just a second, I'm going to give you a great way to set yourself up for success for saving for retirement. I got one more great tip to share that I've never heard someone change after they implement it. But first, I want to know what you think about the shorter episode and new episode style. I greatly value your feedback, and I want to continue to improve the show. So please leave me a comment on Spotify or YouTube, or send me an email. Providing feedback is going to be a great way to make the show even better so that I can continue to improve it for all of you listening. But here's the one tip you've been waiting for. How do you set yourself up for saving for retirement? Start your automatic savings into your retirement higher than you think you can. And trust me, before you turn it off and back away from that advice, your lifestyle will adjust. You can live on just a little bit less than you think. You can always turn it back down, but that's the thing that no one ever does because you're able to adjust your lifestyle and you're going to be just fine living on your new income that you give to yourself by increasing your retirement savings just a little bit. Even if it's 1%, 2%, 3% right now, just do it. That's going to be a great way to get started. And then you're going to be able to track all these financial ratios and you're going to see your net worth ratio climb. But if you're sitting here wondering, what should my numbers be? How do I actually fix this now that I'm tracking my ratios? Well, let's talk. I offer a free 30-minute call to help you figure out your next step. The link is in the bottom of the show notes. So head over there, scroll to the bottom, and sign up for a free call today. But that does it for today's episode. Next week, we're going to hyper-focus on emergency fund planning, how to build an emergency fund, and how to use it. So you're going to want to make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss that episode or any future episodes. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Financial Planning for Young Adults. I'm your host, Skylar Fleming. Have a great week. And hey, quick heads up. This podcast, it's meant to be educational and it's for entertainment purposes. It's not personalized financial advice for your specific situation. So before you go out and make any big money moves, make sure you chat with a qualified financial professional who knows your full financial picture.